Scott Humphrey's with us this morning. He is the CEO of the WFCA, the World Floorcovering Association. And Scott, we haven't talked in a good while. It's good to finally get you back on here.
Good to be back with you, Dave.
And there's so many changes, I'm not even sure where to start. You've been a pretty busy guy.
There's been a lot going on, a lot of good things going on, but change is good. I believe that. I talk about it everywhere I go, but you got to practice what you preach. And we began to realize that we could not continue to have the impact we needed to have on the industry with the existing staff. We needed to add some additional people. And so I've taken you around today and introduced you to 3 of the new people that are here in the Dalton offices. We've got Ashley Welch, who's at our front desk, and also administrative assistant for Steve Abernathy, our CFO, and for Frida Staten, our manager of our membership and communication. And then Sarah Vineyard, who you met, is the manager of finance. She'll work with Steve as well, handling payables and receivables and many other things. And then Phil Zolan, who you I think had probably met at Mohawk, was the manager of continuous improvement at Mohawk, but he will be the executive director of the FCB2B. So we've got one more position we're looking at filling, and once we get that filled, we'll have our full slate. We have a phenomenal board right now at the WFCA, and they've been very supportive of allowing us to make these changes and to prove that these changes make sense.
Very good, very good. Well, let me start off with the CFI. As everyone knows who's listening to us, the WFCA acquired the CFI, the Certified Floorcovering Installers. You opened a training facility in Fort Meade, Texas, the Dallas area. Refresh our memories about that acquisition and the changes that you see occurring there.
Now, Dave, I'll take you back to November because I don't think we've spoken since then, but CFI had a convention. We threw it together very quickly, about 5 weeks after the finalizing of buying the key properties of CFI and the name. We did not buy the CFI entity, but we were able to keep all the membership intact and all the things that we needed to be able to not miss a step. And I'll tell you that Jill Sheets, John McHale, who worked with us on the CFI side, and everybody at CFI would know, Tom Jennings, Robert Varden, his son Jonathan Varden, all involved on the installation side, did a phenomenal job putting that together. And we had more in attendance after 5 weeks of trying to get people there than we had in the previous 2 years. And so not nearly where we wanted to be, but certainly better than we had expected. And I've got to tell you, I'd heard about CFI before and the closeness of that group. They did not misrepresent that. I mean, it is amazing.
It borders on being a religious
It does.
thing,
it's almost a cult. I didn't know if I
Yeah.
could say that, but it is. I mean, there's such a closeness. I mean, somebody walk down the hall and say CFI, and everybody else around shouts back, CFI. But what a great group. The energy, the pride that they take in their work, it's exactly the reason that we wanted to be a part of that and that we wanted to bring CFI under our fold. Because they don't just want to do it, they want to do it right. They're also living examples that this is a viable occupation. You can make good money as an installer, and we as an industry need to quit treating installation like a redheaded stepchild. These are people that are necessary, by the way, probably as necessary as anything in the industry right now. And I'm going to look straight at the camera and just say this. Installation is the crisis that will derail the independent flooring retailer if we don't do something about it. And I'm fearful of the fact that when we acquired CFI, I think there were some people that said, well, God, I don't have to worry about that anymore, it's taken care of. What we agreed to do was to be the focal point, to own it. But this is an industry issue. This is not a WFCA issue, certainly not a CFI issue, and not just a retail issue. It's an issue that impacts everybody. Manufacturers, distributors, everybody in the industry relies on healthy installation to get them where they need to go. It's such a vital part of the success of a good retailer. And so, yeah, it's been slow steps leading to what we see as a very fast year. We've had multiple people come to us. I was just at the CCA convention last week, people coming by and saying, can you do a school in our area?
Well,
and of course,
really?
we'll continue the regional training. We have a full calendar. If people come by our booth at Surfaces or CFI's booth at Surfaces, they'll see we have a full calendar laid out for the school, for all the regional trainings that are coming up for installation as well. They'll see that in advance, but we're willing to do one-offs if there are people that have an issue and they can get enough installers to come. In order to make the impact we want to have, one school in Forney, Texas won't do it. We've got to do more.
So the problems, there's several problems to be addressed, and one, you mentioned the school. and that in essence recruits and trains people. There is a shortage in every trade, and floor covering installation is no exception.
Yeah.
So that one problem, talk about the school, talk about the recruitment aspect.
Yeah, you really have two different aspects of this. You have the certification of existing installers and getting their skill level up to where it needs to be. And then you have the people that have never been in the trade, and we need to bring them in. Because as we've noted before, you really lost two generations. You lost the generation that during the Great Recession was not able to find work. There wasn't enough flooring being sold, and so they went to some other craft where they could work with their hands. We probably won't get many of them back. And so you lost that generation, but installation in the flooring industry is unique in the fact that we apprentice people into it. And so when you lost that generation, you also lost the generation that they would have brought in to help them, who later would have become full-fledged installers. So the school in Forney, Texas is designed that in 5 weeks we can get somebody who's never installed before up to the point of certification, and probably better than most installers that are out there. And it's a 5-week carpet class, and then we have add-on classes that you can do for all the hard surface and resilient elements.
Okay. So then they will be able to be certified when they leave the school.
That's correct. This is not,
and go out in the
we're
field.
not creating apprentices, we're creating installers.
Okay. Seeking the candidates, how do you get the people in the front door the first time?
Every way we can. Every way we can. We go to retailers, obviously, that have needs, and we ask them to reach out through the installer base that they currently have. And those people often have family members or know somebody who might come through. We've obviously reached out to veterans groups, to government organizations, to what are called border kids, which simply means that they're on the border of making a decision in their life of whether to go this way or that way. We've looked at every avenue we possibly can, technical schools, you name it, and we'll continue to look in all those areas. But I can tell you, the challenge will not be creating the schools. We put together a business plan where we can get the schools up and running rather quickly. Robert Varden has done an amazing job of that with the staff I mentioned to you before. The challenge is getting butts in the seats. Yeah. Because, I mean, you create a 5-week school, which, by the way, that's 5 weeks of really being focused on installation. But you're still asking somebody to be away from home potentially for 5 weeks. That's why, ideally, in our mind, these schools are set up in major metropolitan areas where people can drive in and out, where they don't have to stay in a hotel and you don't have additional expense. Because the $5,000 that it costs to go to the school just covers the cost of the trainers for 5 weeks, because you have multiple trainers doing this, overseeing the work, because it's very hands-on. And so we've worked out deals in Forney, Texas with the hotels, and so lodging and food we've gotten as inexpensive as we can. Much of the food is part of the price because you actually eat lunch while you're there, and we'll have other groups donating funds for that. But we're looking for people to be all in on this. If we're going to solve this problem, it's not simply that WFCA is going to dig into our funds and do that, because if you do that, then it's not everybody's issue.
Yeah, they don't own it. So under what conditions does a candidate come to the school? I mean, does he have to be sponsored, or does he cover his expenses, or how's that work?
It can be either way. I mean, somebody can say, you know, that's a viable profession, I'd like to get into that, and they could sponsor themselves. Somebody else could sponsor them. We are actively seeking scholarships for people so that they can come through. And that becomes a big issue today, because I think one of the other things we'll talk about today is the independent contractor issue. And the challenge for people that use subcontractors is that when you pay for them to attend the school, in some states today, that's seen as, well, they're an employee because you paid to send them. And so if we can get scholarships from the industry as a whole that we can allocate toward people, then you don't have somebody sending a subcontractor. You have a subcontractor who's able to go and can go back and continue their business of working on their own.
So the other part of that is, if they invest enough for this school and for the expenses for 5 weeks, they're going to need a job when they get out of the other end. How's that part work?
Biggest challenge we face with veterans groups is they ask 2 questions. Do we have to pay to go to the school? And can you guarantee job placement on the backside? Guaranteeing job placement really is not an issue, even though it is, because we know the shortage of installers everywhere. And by the way, not just a U.S. problem. We have Australia wanting to send people over here to go to the school. They may even have a school just to themselves. They have so many people to send. This is an international problem. We're looking at anything we can do that, again, matches up with our purpose statement, that we exist to ensure the success and profitability of the independent flooring retailer. And this is a big thing that will impact the positive impact of an independent flooring retailer, or could ultimately lead to their demise if we don't deal with this.
In addition to the workrooms being an option that some may look to, Dave, I think it's also important to note that we're looking at developing agreements to allow retailers to send people to training, whether they are employees or whether they're independent contractors. And we're looking at ways to make that happen. Of course, we'll be utilizing Jeff King to do that, but we realize there are a lot of retailers that still want to maintain the independent contractor relationship.
Will there be a placement service of sorts? When somebody finishes, you have a certified installer, you can place them someplace?
Yeah, the intent is that all of our members of WFCA would have access to people after they go through, unless somebody specifically sends somebody. So obviously, if you are a retailer and you pay to send an employee, then they go back to you. They're not going to be open to everyone else. But our WFCA members, we would post graduates and where those graduates are from, and ideally send them back to the locations they came from.
How about something like tools? Is that?
It's amazing how the tool companies have stepped in to donate tools. They've been very gracious. And really within the industry, a lot of the industry has either donated product or tools over the years. We certainly need that to continue because we're ramping up training at a scale we've never done before. And so we need more product and we need more tools, and we would love for people to be able to walk out with a set of tools that they can use, not just use them at the school, but have them.
Well, that's the other part. They need a trunk and they need tools to be able to, provide the service that they've been trained for.
Well, and if they are an independent business, that's one of the things the government looks at. Do they have their own tools? Are they theirs? Do they have their own van? Do they have their own property? And really on the independent contractor issue, Jeff King, our legal counsel, wrote this book probably 3 years ago, and it's available to all of our members. But it does a really good job. We talked the other day, he's going to be updating it based on some recent interpretation by the Department of Labor. But it does a good job spelling out to you, how do you differentiate who is an employee and who is a subcontractor. There's actually a bit of a test in here that you can take, and if you can answer, the more that you answer incorrectly on this, the more likely it is that they're seen as an employee versus a subcontractor. But Jeff may have wished he hadn't written this book because he's been on a world tour lately. Everybody's asking him to come and speak to this topic. Even at the CCA convention last week, I had multiple people come by and say, what are you doing to address this issue? And they were very comforted to know that just in the last 2 months, we've been to Washington, D.C. and met on both sides of the aisle and talked to them about how our industry is unique. That we have a professional retailer that sells it, a professional installer that installs it, but the retailer is viewed by the way the installer does their job by the end consumer. And so the retailer needs to be able to have some kind of impact on the professionalism of the installer. And so to say that there can be no connection whatsoever really derails the way our industry is set up. And we got some very compassionate ears, and we got others who basically felt that all subcontractors were crooks and that everybody should be an employee. And you're going to see that on all sides. We just continue to fight the fight.
Well, I guess who is elected and comes into office next year is going to play a role in this.
Yeah, if you're in any way thinking about not voting, that would be a mistake, because there's never been an election that is more pivotal to our industry than the one that's coming up, by the way, not just on a national level, but on a state-by-state level, because you'll see today there's a handful of states that are being impacted by this issue much more than others.
That's it.
But the issue is that at a national level, the Department of Labor is now saying we're going to make this an issue across the board.
Very interesting. The curriculum at the school, and I know Robert Varden has been doing this for years and years and has been very thorough at that, and I guess that curriculum is being carried over here?
It is. As a matter of fact, at the convention that we had in November, they actually brought in the CFI certifiers and went through the curriculum again and began to rewrite, tweak, update, and even translate that curriculum into Spanish so we would have it available for anyone that might come into the school.
And Dave, I also think it's important to note that the CFI school that we're doing in Forney and we'll be doing across the United States is not being trained to a certain standard. We're not doing a school that trains to the CRI 104, 105, or the S600, the CFI has always trained to best practices within installation. And so I know that's been issued as a concern to some people that we're trying to promote one standard over another. Never has been the case with CFI, wouldn't be the case with this either. I also wanted to mention to you that we're just coming back from the CCA convention. I've mentioned that several times. It was a really good event, well attended, a lot of energy there. But I also wanted to mention that we've signed an agreement with CCA for the parties within CCA to go through the Forney School and other schools that might open up across the United States as a way to get new installers into their system. They're a retail group that obviously does it and does it right. They care about solving this issue like we do. And we think adding CCA's voice to the voice of WFCA and specifically CFI makes a lot of sense. They've made this a very palatable move for their members to go there, and we're excited about the partnership.
Once a person is trained, he's out, he's working in the field, what about education after that?
We'll continue all of the regional training that we have done, so they have the opportunity to be re-educated. Their membership continues year to year as they choose to rejoin. Communication will continue to be good and probably much better. We'll have people that are focused solely on communicating to them, letting them know what's available. We'll have some online modules that will update them on new trends, new tricks of the trade, so to speak. And probably some of those online modules will even be precursors to training, so that you will watch them before you come in to have a better understanding, so you can kind of hit the ground running.
Now, ultimately, how do you see this training and training facilities playing out?
I see us adding more schools. As a matter of fact, we will already have a calendar for the use of our Anaheim facility that will start, I think, March or April is our first school there. But our plan is to have Forney, which is outside of Dallas, Anaheim, and probably 2 other facilities up and running by midsummer. And, you know, we had some great ideas last week at the CCA meeting. One gentleman said, make it mobile, put it on an 18-wheeler and make it mobile. And so we'll look at whether that's a viable option. Another said that, hey, we'll build all the modules out for you so that you can just come and do the training if you'll just send us the blueprints. And I'm telling you, this issue is hitting so hard for so many people that they're basically begging, we'll do anything you need us to do. Please get us bodies. Get us bodies that are professional, that represent us well. We need your training.
So you're getting buy-in from manufacturers and retailers and others?
Financially, not so much, although we haven't done a lot of ask yet. We're very new into this. But from the retailers, the buy-in that this is a major issue is, that would be an understatement. I mean, they understand that this is the issue. Let's face the facts. During my 25 years at the former company I was at Shaw, there were times when we had over 20,000 independent flooring retailers. Now, depending on the trade publication that you look at, that's between 10 and 12,000. That's an amazing demise of the professional flooring dealer. Mm-hmm. That will continue if we don't address 2 key issues. Issue number 1 is installation. Issue number 2 is the independent contractor. If these 2 issues are able to run amok, then the demise of the independent flooring retailer is already written. Our job is to stop it.